I'm Eric from Longbox Review.
I'm Peter from the Daily Rios, and this is episode 21 of Eric and Peter's Legion Project Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Legion Project Podcast. This is episode 21. I am your host, Peter.
And co-host Eric here.
No, you're also a host. we're both I should have said co-host, but we're both hosts. How you doing today? Happy New Year.
Yeah, that's right. We've had a span, haven't we, between
Yes.
episodes? Yeah. So I'm good. How are things out east? Are you surviving?
Yeah, life, decay in all various states of whatever that means.
Decay.
Decay. Yeah. It is the reason we're saying that, even though this is late into the years, because this is our first time recording in the new year. Took me a while to get that other episode out for one reason or another. But we're here. It is just to put a stamp on it. It's March 8th. So we are back to talk about the Legion of Superheroes. And, there's a lot of stuff going on in our lives. And virus is coming to get us and all that. So.
Mm-hmm. But spring is coming, Peter. I when I took my dog out this morning, I noticed I've got some crocus coming up. Buds are on the trees. So I am very happy right now. Winter is coming to an end.
I don't even think we had winter over here, much other than the cold. So, it's strange.
It snowed yesterday here.
Oh, so jealous.
You can have it. Take it all.
So, couple of things, of announcements, or just some things here and there that we want to talk about at the top of the episode. Oddly enough, or just interestingly enough, with this issue number 21, once we're done, that means we are a third of the way done with this volume.
Wow, really?
Yeah, issue 21, because there's 63 issues.
That's right.
Not counting annuals and spin-offs and miniseries.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, that's pretty good. We got a third done.
We've been doing this now for a little over 2 years. 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to make mention of that. A couple of off mic, Eric and I we're trying to make a decision about how to talk about the current Legion of Superheroes volume, and just openly and honestly, I'm not really having a good time with it. What are your general thoughts about that volume?
Yeah, it's a bit lackluster. The bloom is off the rose, I think, with it, because when it was first introduced to us, it's Legion back after a while. It's got Bendis on it, Ryan Sook, just the excitement of it. But yeah, after I've read the first 3 issues now. I think Peter, you said you read up to issue 4,
mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is it's not quite gelled yet to me. It feels a little undercooked.
Yeah, and then when it came time to sort of say, well, how do we want to talk about it? I said, which was a thought that you had brought up a while back, is maybe we talk about it in chunks, right? Maybe we talk about it in whatever chunks they're going to collect it in a trade. And then Eric responded by saying, go ahead.
Oh, I don't remember what I said now.
You said maybe we don't talk about it at all.
Oh, that's right. It's an option, right?
It is.
It's our
It
podcast.
very
We
much
can
is.
do whatever we want.
That's right. I know there are other podcasts talking about the issue.
Oh, yeah. People can find those.
Yeah, Legion of Substitute Podcasters and elsewhere. But
Yeah.
I said to Eric, if I talk about this issue by issue, I won't be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad. So
yeah, it is. I figure though that we will probably most definitely, depending on how this first trade's worth or storyline or whatever goes, that will define whether or not we continue with it. I think. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that we'll do at least one more Tales episode involving the new Legion book, and then we'll see after that, I guess.
Right. I'm sure my dumb butt will still continue to buy it, even if I'm not enjoying it.
Well, it's not the worst comic out there.
That's true.
But it's hard because when you love something as so much, like we do the Legion, and you get a new version of it, you want to love it so badly, and when it's not that great, it's really hard.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's the tone of the book. It's the way the book is constructed. I almost feel it's super Marvel style. The way they used to talk about writing Marvel comics in the Marvel way, where it was just a synopsis, and then the artist just goes to town, and then they go back and layer the dialogue in afterwards. So it's not like heavily scripted, but I can't imagine it's that way either,
mm-hmm.
because it does feel like there's a lot of scene to scene shifts and dialogue bits, but anybody could be speaking the dialogue. I don't know. It just I see an underlying rumbling of it. I fear that it's only going to pay off within the last, when we get up to issues 10, 11, 12. But then the book will shift creative teams, most likely, and then it'll become something else. And so you're right. Like, I don't think we need to invest and do like some kind of like hate podcast on it, which is not what I want to do.
No, not at all. And just because we aren't particularly liking the direction or the execution of the new Legion book doesn't mean that we hate it or hate the creators or anything like that. So
right. There's some stuff in it that I like. There's some stuff that I enjoy, but it's what it is. So just wanted to kind of give an update in case people were wondering, because I did steer someone, I think it was a gentleman named Michael on Twitter. They asked if we talked about issue 1, which we did back in one of our tales, I think the last tales. And so I gave him the link to that, so that he could go listen to it. So it's not like we haven't talked about it in depth, but I guess we're just going to wait a little longer.
We had some other news, if you don't mind me jumping to this, Peter. I saw this just the other day as I was going through previews. A totally unexpected, to me anyway, and I was really curious what you thought about this, but DC Comics is putting out an omnibus of the 5-year later run, at least the first part of it, first big chunk of it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I honestly never thought that they would ever collect that for some reason.
Well, they had a smaller collection before. Remember, in some of our early episodes, we even talked about there was I think that was a deluxe edition, which meant probably they were only collecting half of what's in this omnibus at that time, or less. So it was solicited, or at least announced on Amazon or something somewhere, but then it got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
And so now this is, they're going from a deluxe edition, which only collected, part of what they're collecting here, to an omnibus, $100 and whatever dollar
50.
omnibus.
150. That's
wow.
Crazy.
Over 1,400 pages, collecting issues 1 through 39, a Timberwolf miniseries, a bunch of annuals, and select Who's Who images from the loose leaf volume from the early 90s. So I don't like getting omnibuy.
I don't either.
And I feel like, are you segregating this volume to hardcore omnibuy collectors and not just the casual readers or casual trade buyers?
It can't. Yeah, it's got to be the former, because that price tag alone is just ridiculous. And then
even with DCBS, it's $75.
Yeah, and what are they going to do? Because for the rest of the run, because there's only like 20 or so more issues, 25 issues maybe, and that's not that's not another omnibus.
Yeah, I mean, I see where they're going with the 39 issues, because that is technically, you could say, that's the end of the storyline that starts with issue 1 or starts with issue 13, whatever you want to say. The Terror Mosaic storyline, the 5 years later concept kind of runs its course by issue 39. In fact, I think 39 on the cover, it says something like the beginning or something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I get it. I also get, without going into spoilers, why you don't want to end it at issue 38, because that's a depressing issue. Excuse me.
Right. Yeah, big time.
Yeah. So I understand that notion that maybe they wouldn't reprint anything after that. I get that. Maybe the notion is that you stick it in an omnibus because of the price tag, you don't have to sell as many pre-orders against it, right? Because it is such a niche market within a niche market. I only have one omnibus, and I think it really was just one of those where, hey, I got some funny money, so I'll spend it. It's Grant Morrison's Invisibles, all the Invisibles issues in one. It's still not opened.
Is it still in the plastic wrap, or
it's still in the original shrink wrap.
Oh no.
Sitting there like a giant paperweight. And because I'm not big on that, like, I think I have the Final Crisis Absolute. I used to have the Crisis. No, excuse me. I used to have the Legion of. I used to have the Justice League Avengers, the JLA Avengers.
Oh.
I don't think it was an absolute, but it was in that format.
Yeah.
I actually sold that.
Oh, you did?
Years ago. Yeah, I did.
I've been wanting one of those. I'm having a hard time finding one.
Yeah, they're hard. That's hard. Because it's the same, like I said, same format, but it wasn't called an absolute at that time.
Right.
And then I think I also had... Did I have the Crisis Absolute? I can't remember if I did or not. I might have sold that too. Years ago. This is years ago. But yeah, the only thing I have is the Invisibles Omnibus. And I sometimes look at it and go, what the hell? What am I supposed to do with that?
Well, you can get a workout with it, that's for sure.
I guess. So to bring it back to this, I mean, it's such a mysterious part of Legion history that I feel like they're just isolating even more by putting it in an omnibus format.
Mm-hmm.
So I would really love to know if listeners are curious enough about it to plunk down anywhere between $75 to $150 on it. Or is this the start of maybe they start here and then they go to smaller volumes. That's actually how they did New Teen Titans. New Teen Titans, what did they start out with? They started out with archives of all things.
Right. Mm-hmm. $50 archives.
Then they started to do some omnibuy collections. And then we finally got to the soft cover collections.
Yeah, which really pissed me off, actually. Because I got those omnibuses. And then, like you said, they started with the trades. I'm like, I'd rather have the trades.
Right.
And so I actually gave away a couple of those New Teen Titan ones as I rebought yet again those New Teen Titans issues.
Yeah. I just sold my Volume 1, New Teen Titans Omnibus. The one back from, 2012, I think it was.
Mm.
Yeah, sold it to Logan. I think that's his name, Logan Drydale. Yeah, I think he listens to the Legion podcast. So, that says something if I'm willing to sell off a New Teen Titans collection. Again, it was in the original shrink wrap.
Mm.
That's 8 years. Why did I buy it? Because it was just it's a coffee table book. It's decoration. I don't know. So I don't think I'm going to be pre-ordering this. It's just too much money.
Yeah, I need to seriously think about this. Because I love that run of comics. It'd be nice to have it in a collection. But yeah, it's a lot of money. The DC omnibuses are not fun to read because of the way the binding cuts off the middle part of the inside parts of the pages a lot of the times. So I don't know. And I cannot see, this era of the Legion is generally not well regarded.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, even though there are those of us, including we two, who enjoyed it quite a bit. So I can't imagine. I guess it depends on the sales of this, right? Just like it probably happened with the New Teen Titans omnibuses to trades where they switched over. I don't see a lot of sales with this. But I know nothing about all that stuff. This is just a gut feeling.
Right. Go and buy some back issues and bind them up yourselves if you really want a collection. Because then you're guaranteed order, you're guaranteed the text pages. I don't know if those text pages are going to be in them. Those are important.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I saw somebody on Twitter asking that very question, if they're going to include that stuff. And hey, speaking of on Twitter, we did get someone responding to my post about the omnibus. And I thought it was funny. Chris on Twitter said, "Weird how everyone uses interlac, but some of the Legionnaires' costumes are emblazoned with English lettering, like Element Lad, Phantom Girl. Thoughts?" Which Peter, you did respond to that to Chris, but it was a different time.
Right.
But but it's funny because so you responded with that, and I was thinking, well, what's an in-universe explanation? And I thought, the Legionnaires, at least at that time, in a way they were, because history had been rewritten thanks to Crisis and the whole Superboy thing, but they had a fascination with 20th century history and superheroics. And what did the premier superhero do? He put a big red S on his chest. So why not put a P or an E on your costume?
That's great. That's a great explanation. So speaking of feedback, we did get Robert Kelly wrote an email to me, and we've heard from Robert before. Talking about Giffen's art style, Keith Giffen's art style, especially at the end of the Baxter run, which we'll eventually get to, and then leading into that 5 years later run. And at the time of the first email, Robert was asking if there was a story behind the change, and I think we've talked about Giffen's constant, ever-changing art style from even prior to the Baxter run. Mm-hmm. Through to 5 years later, and that's something I'm sure we'll continue to talk about. So, I'm not going to go into depth here, but I sent some links and some articles and some interviews, and then Robert wrote back and said, "Oh, those were great. That helps to fill in a lot of the story." And then at that time, in the second email, Robert had already jumped into the 5 years later stuff and kind of went a different way and said, wow, it really works here. I can see how the art style got a little more refined, and it really does help to tell that particular story. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of nice to see, where the evolution makes sense, even if it is a little jarring at first. So that was nice. It was a nice little email exchange that we got. And I think that's it. I think that's it for any kind of Legion news stuff.
Well, Peter, if you don't mind, before we get into the issue, there is one thing I want to bring up that is news of a sort. As we record this, yesterday, March 7th, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Was the 15th anniversary of the beginning of Comic Geek Speak. And as people will know and should know, Peter was the co-founder of CGS, along with Brian Deemer. And so congratulations on 15 years of comic book podcasting, Peter.
15 years. Yikes. That's crazy. That's crazy. It was cool to see all the remembrances and names that you don't see often, maybe because they're not on social media, but then they pop up at certain places. And even Tom King and Julie Benson, they mentioned some stuff. So yeah, it was fun. That was cool to see all the reaction, and it is kind of mind-boggling to think 15 years and it's still going on with some of the originals, but also some new people, and to see where it's all, and that I'm still podcasting to this day. Yeah, right. What a strange journey, this small little new media, as it was called back then, hobby, in today's world has blown up into podcasting has blown up. But 15 years ago, it was just sort of this strange little thing. So yeah, that's crazy.
Well, I will, on behalf of everybody out there, especially comic book podcasters, thank you and Brian for charting the course and inspiring a lot of us to do the same thing in our own way. So thank you very much.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, we certainly weren't the first comic book podcast, or the first podcast to talk about comics even. But in terms of longevity, in terms of, who's still doing it, it's not a lot, Comic News Insider, Comic Book Noise, maybe they're still doing it. Chris Marshall, the Collected Comics Library, dabbles, still does podcasting, I think. Ian Levinstein. I mean, there's that small group from 2005. There aren't many left. So it's crazy. And yet you can go all the way back. You can go back and listen to them all. And sometimes I do. And yeah, it's crazy to hear. God, I was like, what was I, 33 at the time, I guess? 32, 33. This is a baby. I was a baby. We were babies back then.
Mm-hmm.
And the world was ours. Now I'm bitter and jaded and complaining about a new Legion book.
Yeah. The more things change.
Yeah. In more ways than one, which we won't get into. No, thanks for that. Yeah, that was fun. That's a cool. And I know they're trying to get some kind of recording with as many of the hosts as possible.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Brian is off running around in Japan right now. So, and Brian and I actually live close. He's about 20 minutes away from me. So, I even thought about just him and I just kind of getting together and doing something. I was going to try to do something creative, and then it just, life happened. So, who knows? Maybe he and I can just kind of do like something to celebrate that first episode where we were sharing a mic, literally sharing a mic, like mouth to mouth, like we were like eating a carrot or something.
You should do that exactly like it was for the first episode.
It was so ridiculous. Doing phone interviews by holding the phone up to the microphone before we figured out how to get people to call in and all that stuff. Those were the days. Well, that's enough nostalgia, I guess.
so to speak, since we're going to talk about an issue that came out in 1986?
Yeah, early days of 1986. That's all right. Legion of Superheroes issue number 21. Let's go into it. Let's start off with our usual synopsis, credit read, and our general thoughts, and then we will dig into the issue as we wrap up the first third of this series.
All right. Legion of Superheroes number 21, Obsession. This is by Paul Levitz, the writer. Greg LaRocque and Larry Malstead are the artists. John Costanza, letterer. Carl Gafford, colorist. Karen Berger is the editor, with a cover by LaRocque and Malstead. So in this issue, Brainiac 5 drags Element Lad to the center of the Earth to air his suspicions about Sensor Girl, but Element Lad trusts Saturn Girl's judgment and wants to hear no more of Brainiac 5's paranoid ranting. On a space arc, Legionnaires spar with the former Tacron Galtros prisoners. Back to Brainiac 5, he escalates from conspiracy to misdemeanor by breaking and entering into Sensor Girl's quarters. And we get another thing thrown in the mix. While camping on another world, Shadowlass confides in Phantom Girl about Mon-El's increasing immunity to his lead serum. Oh no. Back on the prison arc, the Emerald Empress reveals herself to the Legionnaires and that she's recruiting for a new Fatal Five, which includes specifically Sensor Girl, who rebuffs the villainous. And with the Emerald Eye's power drain, the Empress leaves with the Persuader in tow. And then the Legion subdue the remaining prisoners. Finally, Brainiac 5 voices what he's been contemplating, and readers have been guessing in the letters column. Sensor Girl is Supergirl, and he vows to restore her. Dun, dun, dun.
This is the... I mean, we've already had the start of the Who is Sensor Girl mystery, but this is definitely a major
it's like the official
for that.
Kickoff.
Yeah. Great. What do you want to start with? Covers or general thoughts?
General thoughts, I guess. That might be a good way.
Okay.
To get into it. Just briefly, I like the Emerald Empress stuff, especially in relation to Sensor Girl. The rest of the issue is kind of for me.
Okay.
I do like Brainiac 5's spiral into madness, so to speak, with his obsession here. So I mean, the title is very appropriate considering what's going on. But that whole bit with the prisoners and the Legionnaires taking them on, that's just, to me, that was just filler.
Okay. Especially compared to last issue, I really like this issue. I thought it was a return to what we like about other issues where there's kind of like one main story and then you get these little subplots along the way or side stories. But yet the Brainiac story, even though it opens the issue and feels like a side story, that actually felt like the main story.
Mm-hmm.
At first, when I remembered what issue we were going to read, I was like, oh, right, I remember this one, the prisoners, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of felt like, well, that's the main story, right? And then after I got done with rereading it again, I went, oh, wait, no, it's not the main story. It really is Brainiac's obsession. And you get to follow Sensor Girl into that prison story and helps to buffer what's going on, right? It helps to add to the mystery. So in a weird way, that kind of delineation of one main story with all these side stories, it got inverted for me midway through. And I went, oh, wait, no, it's not that way, you know, even though we opened up very strongly with that Brainiac 5 Element Lad issue, scene. So I do like this. I like this issue. I like it because it also will lead into a couple other things down the road. But having said all that, I do see how it could just feel like a standard issue because it does go back to formula a little bit. And I feel like ever since Greg LaRocque has come on to the book, Greg LaRocque, we've had hit and miss issues because of oh, maybe because Steve Lytle's departure might have thrown a little bit of a curve into the book. So Paul Levitt's it's going to take a couple issues before the new collaboration settles.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with this issue, it's settled. It's settled nicely, and now it's going to become whatever it is it's going to become. Because as I said, I did not like last episode. Excuse me, no, last issue. I'm getting so confused. And we've had like the crisis issue, and so there's a lot of like weirdness happening, right? Or that issue where it's like a new beginning with the Legion of Superheroes. So it's like just weird sort of interruptions here and there.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Right? And then we got that two-parter, which is a sequel to a two-parter from the first year of this volume. So I feel like with this issue, we're allowed to now move on and look towards whatever they're going to do for the next half a year or the next year. So,
well, thematically, and I'm maybe jumping ahead a little too much, but since you're talking about it now, thematically, we got the Emerald Empress wanting to chart a new course with a new Fatal Five, so that makes a lot of sense too. So yeah, there's a lot of newness about this.
Right. Okay, good. So we're not terribly far apart from each other, but that's good. That's good. So,
well, and I maybe I just need to clarify the stuff with the villains on the prison arc or whatever. I was really just referring to just basically the fight scene between the villains and the other Legionnaires. Everything else about that, well, like you mentioned with Censor Girl and Emerald Empress, and that stuff really does interest me. Just the other things, just it's like, okay, how many times are we going to see this?
Right, because we've seen it before a bunch of times. If it wasn't them rounding up the Legion of Supervillains, it was them having to go save the prison planet, and now it's like, oh, we're back here again.
Yeah.
What, three issues later? And it's a way to move whatever it is that Paul Levitz wants to move story-wise, and there are some nice character stuff in it. But yeah, I totally agree. And I even think artwork-wise, there are a couple places that the art was used to try to create a real dramatic effect, but I felt like the effect, it didn't hit quite as hard as I wanted it to. So we can talk about some of that stuff as well. Covers. Let's talk about the covers.
Yeah. Speaking of art, I have a problem with the main cover, not the Tales reprint, but the main cover.
Right, by LaRuck and Malstead.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's very representative of the issue, at least part of the issue. Just a big fight scene there with Emerald Empress front and center. Well, I guess maybe not so front, because we got some 4 figures in here, and this is my problem with this issue. And I know I'm nitpicking, I know this, but we seem to have 3 figures prominently in the foreground, and we really just see their hands. But I have a problem with the perspective on this. Who's actually closest to me on the page, type of thing, and it just doesn't quite work for me, I guess. But I think I realized the problem. That big fist on the left, that's Colossal Boy, right? So maybe makes sense perspective-wise, just because he's bigger. Because normally you see something so big in the forefront, that means it's the closest thing to you. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't appear to be, because Lightning Lass's arm is firing a bolt of lightning towards Persuader's axe, and that's really the thing that's closest to us. So, but anyway, it's just to me, and it's not just those characters. There's other things in there. It's like, things that just look a little weird, and they're just, I don't know. They some of the characters appear like they're floating, but we obviously see a floor here. I don't know. It's not my favorite cover.
I was trying to look back to issue number 3 of this volume, which is another cover where it's a big fight scene between the Legion of Supervillains and the Legion of Superheroes, where Wildfire's, it's also very chaotic, but the foreground background stuff kind of works because you see more faces, as opposed to this one where there's a lot of stuff that's sort of like in the way that you have to like maneuver through to get to, or even like issue 5 of this volume, where this one is actually is similar, where Princess Projectra is standing on top of all of the villains, and the faces of Element Lad and Chameleon Boy. Is it boy? Chameleon Boy? Chameleon Kid?
Boy.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Some Legion fan I am. Shrinking Violet, we're looking at like behind them to Princess Projectra. So it's kind of working that same kind of perspective where you have to go through something to see the main image.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you, but I totally understand, that big giant axe. I think composition wise, if I was like in an art school, which I did go to an art school, they would say, okay, the axe is first of all, it's on the same plane as your main character. Like, I don't mean foreground, background. I just mean, the X, Y, whatever. Like, it's right there. So it's framing her in a weird way. It's almost making her look like she is on the same level. Right. And also the axe is kind of just very straight up and down. Like, it's not on an angle. It's just, it makes it look crowded on that side. So yeah, composition wise, it's not a great cover. She should be bigger.
Yes.
She should be lower. I think it's all the word, the text is all crammed up top.
Mm-hmm.
The creators, the title logo, the Emerald Empress has her eye on the Legion, and it's all just like shoved up there. So yeah, it's okay. It's okay. And then compare it to Tales of the Legion of Superheroes number 346 from a year later. This one by Mr. Kevin McGuire.
Yeah.
And Malstead doing inks. What do you think of that cover?
Well, considering what you just said about the Empress being not as prominent in the original cover, boy, howdy do we get her and the eye. It's certainly succeeding on that level, I guess, but I still like this cover a little better. It's just the Empress with the eye very prominently. But then we get to see this reflection of Sensor Girl coming at the Emerald Empress, but we see her because it's a reflection. But the rest of the cover is just a red background with the logo and some text dress on there as well. So very simple in comparison, but I think much more effective.
The colors really stand out. That background color against all that green.
Oh yeah.
I think the eye's a little too big. I wish it wasn't so.
That true. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. And it's just kind of fun to see, it's such a shame we don't have Comic Book DB anymore, because I can't go and look at Kevin McGuire as a cover artist, because this is prior to the Justice League Wahaha era. But, which is really what kind of put Kevin McGuire on the map. But here he is doing a cover, and you can see it. I can see his, I can see certain things that say, yeah, that's a Kevin McGuire cover, or I can tell that it's him. I just would like to see what else he was doing at this time. But I also like, and we've been dealing with this for the past couple Tales issues, that it's no longer Steve Lytle, and it's not Greg LaRocque, and it's not Giffen, and it's not, I don't know, anybody that we're sort of used to. Now we're getting into Kevin Nolan and now Kevin McGuire, like these random names that don't have necessarily a Legion history. So we get to see different interpretations, not only of the Legion, but of the covers from a year previous. different from the way Lytle could do it. You know, like Lytle was in a unique position to go, all right, that's what I did last time. Here's what I'm going to do now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because Lytle had a little bit more of an intimate knowledge of what was going on the inside. Well, now you're getting these artists who are just being hired to come up with a cover. So they're probably, I don't know, are they reading the issue? Are they just looking at the previous cover and just going, all right, Emerald Empress has a scene in there with Sensor Girl. All right, this is what I'm going to do. So I think that's why these covers on the Tales issues are starting to feel a little more isolated from the story, maybe, or from the history. I don't know, something like that. Can't quite wrap my mind around it.
Well, I think there's certainly. I'm trying to remember the all the covers recently, but they seemed to me that they're a little more simpler in presentation. Mm-hmm. And you know, who is it? Was that a editorial decision to you know, quote unquote dumb things down? or were the artists given a little more freedom to just kind of do whatever? I can't imagine that's the case, but
yeah. So you're picking the Tales if you had to pick.
Yes, in this case, yes. I mean, it's not my usual choice, but I'll go with it for this one for sure.
Almost begrudgingly. I mean, I feel like the choice is like, maybe there's a third option somewhere. So, okay, all right. I, again, lamenting that we don't have Comic Book DB, I'm almost wondering if this is the first time I've read Emerald Empress in a story.
Oh, really?
Because she hadn't been seen prior to this in the Baxter run, right? Mm-hmm. Or am I just forgetting?
I don't think so, yeah.
Okay. And was she in any of those Tales stories leading up to the Baxter run from issues like 300 to the... I don't think the Fatal Five was around. The Persuader was around.
Yeah, that's you're right. I was thinking they were, but yeah, you're right. I think it's the Persuader story.
Right. So without having something where I can click on the character's name and go through all the volumes, I just don't know, which is frustrating. Because I was trying to think, oh, this is really interesting. And when you read the letter column for this issue, I think it is, where they, or maybe it even, I can't remember if it's the issue here, where they say, oh no, here it is. It's in the issue. Any new theories as of this story, which provides all the clues you need with in regards to the mystery of Sensor Girl. I think putting Emerald Empress on here, as I was reading it and realizing what kind of character she is, and we talked about her in that Justice League versus the Fatal Five Tales episode, and I've read stories afterwards, I went, oh, that's kind of smart of Levitz to use Emerald Empress, the beginning of a new Fatal Five. Like, I feel like there's, boy, am I really kind of like walking around what I want to say here. I think there are clues. I think using her is a giant clue, and there's dialogue later on. So it was kind of nice. I was reading it going, oh, I think this is the first time I read that character. And then I went, oh, it really means something to the mystery. We can talk about that a little bit later in depth if we want to. So I think maybe that's why I liked her inclusion, and it does feel kind of, you could say it's a little out of left field that she just happens to show up here, and I'm starting a new Fatal Five, so I'm going to go after. Who was she going to get? Like, I don't understand who she was even going to get from the Prison Break characters, or did she do it as a way to bring the Legionnaires there to maybe offer the same invitation to them? I don't know. Yeah, it feels a little like immediate in its storytelling. Mm-hmm. But I kind of dug it. You have history with the character, though, right?
Oh yeah, one of the first, within the first 6 months of my comic reading, comic collecting, I got a lead one of those DC digests that was Legion centric, and they had reprinted that classic story with the Sun Eater and Feral Lad dying and everything, and because that was the introduction of the Fatal Five in in the Legion mythos. And so, yeah, I very early on in my Legion reading, I was introduced to the Fatal Five, and specifically, I always liked the Emerald Empress, probably more than the other characters. So I always liked it when she showed up. And I like it even more that she's taking charge here, finally, because it never felt right to me that Therak was the leader, even though he's the computer brain person, the supposedly smartest guy in the room. He never came across to me as leadership material. And I thought, Emerald Empress was smart enough and had the power to really be the leader of the group. And so it's kind of nice to see the switch here, even though she's really not that effective, despite the fact that she has one of the most powerful weapons in the universe.
Well, where do you want to start? Let's start with the Sensor Girl stuff, because I love the opening of this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Of Brainy and Element Lad, the two leaders of the Legion at this moment, leader and deputy leader, in the middle of the Earth, in this weird futuristic tube system,
mm-hmm.
Talking about secrets and conspiracies, and they even reference the last time they did something like this back in the 300s, when they were trying to determine, what was going on with Shrinking Violet, or that someone was impersonating her. I liked it for so many reasons. The location, the futuristic nature of it, being in the middle of the Earth, the continuation of the subplot of who is Sensor Girl, but also, and I found this in a couple places in this issue, a return to dialogue that really shows that these characters are friends and that they have history and they know how to talk to each other. Especially at the end of this scene when Element Lad is like, you know what? What does he say to Brainy as he steps in? He goes, come on, I'm too tired for this and you're too smart. Home? And Brainiac 5 says home. And it's such a small little bit of dialogue that doesn't necessarily mean anything to the larger ongoing story. But when I read that and some other places, I was like, that's what I love. I love that.
Yeah. When people, I'll say newer readers, over the years, when I hear about people, it can't get into the Legion because it's too esoteric, or too many people, or too much history or whatever. What I always think of is, this is why I love the Legion. It's not that history. I mean, that's part of it, but it's not the main reason. It's I love certain characters and whatnot, but it's really this developing these friendships, like you mentioned. And yes, those little bits of dialogue, those interactions. And we have a scene, later in the issue between Phantom Girl and Shadowlass, and we've talked before about that kind of two power couples thing between those four characters. It's those little bits. It's not really called out. It's not pointed out in any way. It's just there because that's how friendships are. And I agree with you 100%. That is one of the main reasons that I keep coming back to the Legion, and why I love this title and these characters so much. And it quite frankly, it's mirrors the reason I love the new Teen Titans, and I think maybe the Titans probably did it a little better during this time period, the same time period, but right. Levitz and company are certainly doing their damnedest to give New Teen Titans a run for their money in that regard. And this, like you said, that little exchange between those two, and it's, to me, it says a whole lot about what Element Lad is like as a person. He's like, he has concern enough that he's going to come down. I presume, I kind of read this as, well, no, do they say it explicitly that's the middle of the night or something like that? But,
yeah.
They're tired. So I presumed it's late, even though they're in the middle of the freaking earth, lava all around. But, it comes across as very, what do I want to say here? All the President's Men-ish, kind of deep throat kind of thing. They're even wearing trench coats, for crying out loud. But, Element Lad is just so, he's like, yeah, Brainy, but come on, dude. It's you're going a little too far into crazy town here. He doesn't say it explicitly, but he's being a good friend. He's trying to coach Brainiac 5 through this without, being a jerk to him. And that's one of the things I like about Element Lad.
Plus, he brings up that that's how he got into the Legion as well.
That's right.
It's very similar circumstances where he was Mystery Lad, right? And I think it was Mystery Lad, and Saturn Girl was the one that said he has a right to be on the team. But I did also like that Brainiac threw it back and said, okay, fine, I'll take that. I'll concede that point. However, we did something about it. You were being chased by Roxas the Butcher because he destroyed your people. You were a mystery, but the Legion did something about it, and I guess you could even sort of say the subtext of that is Element Lad accepted their help in whatever that storyline was, because I don't think I've ever read that issue or issues. And Brainy's making the point that, okay, fine, if I'll take that, but why don't we take the lead now and try to determine what it is that she's hiding from, or why is she keeping this a mystery, right? So I liked that he threw that back.
Yeah, but that's a huge leap in logic.
Right, because that's sort of suggesting that there is something going on rather than just
exactly.
She's just that's just her costume.
Yeah, because Brainy is certainly he is prefacing his theory with the conclusion and trying to convince Element Lad of the need for action based on that. So that's just, for a scientist, he is way off track.
That's why it's called obsession, not analysis.
That's true.
No, that's good. I like that you countered with that, because I didn't think of that. Yeah, you're right, because nobody's saying. All we really know is that Saturn Girl says she has a very good reason for wanting to be in the Legion. That's really all she said. It's not like she says she's hiding from something, she's on the run. That's just Brainy going, well, we have to help her. Really, because he just has to help himself.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a very selfish set of actions that he's embarking upon.
What do you think of him breaking into her room?
Well, yeah, that was interesting. Brainy has had a history of going off the deep end, and that was kind of my reaction to that. Really, I was thinking about it in terms of, what if the other Legionnaires found out about this? Right? I can just imagine. Shadowlass just tearing into him if she ever found out that he had done something like that. There's the issue of trust. These future teenagers, they have this long history with each other, but and on top of that, the fact, like I said, Brainy has gone off the deep end. He's actually gone mad a few times. Like I said, I don't know what's. I know some things are coming up. I don't know details, because this part of the Baxter run is still new to me. But I would love to see some Legionnaires at least reacting to what Brainiac is doing, because like I said, they're living in close quarters. They are future teenagers, and having privacy is a really big thing for most people anyway. But when you're younger like that, I'm putting a lot of American teenager type tropes on top of this, but I just can't see people trusting Brainiac after this. I'm sure. Well, what I'm guessing is that Sensor Girl will keep that between them, I guess. But we shall see.
Yeah, I thought he got off lightly.
Oh yeah,
and I do wonder if it just speaks to it's so hard to talk about this issue. I just want to say things. Because they're right. There are a lot of clues in this. Now, his supposition, again, is that it's Supergirl.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he invades her room, he finds a hologlobe showing a world. Or, as he says later, showing where a world could be, a planet. He sees that her flight ring is in the room, but yet she's supposed to be off-world. And he says, why would a woman who can see across the galaxy need a hologlobe? And what kind of person doesn't need her flight ring to fly?
Mm-hmm.
So he is doing what you said before, and he's adding up the pieces way ahead of time. He's trying to make the clues fit his conclusion.
Exactly.
As opposed to the conclusion fitting the clues. So, he says on page 21, a world that no longer exists in the universe. Why is the globe showing that? And he goes, oh, well, then it must be Krypton. Why else? Right? Now, some of that is true, but she wasn't from Krypton necessarily. I mean, she was, but she was from Argo more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, which, if it really was Supergirl, what image would she have? The Legion flight ring thing could obviously be a clue as well. And then he says he believes that it truly is Kara, that it truly is Supergirl, and she has returned to him. I thought that was an interesting comment. But that she's not the same, and he has to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that obsession angle continuing.
Yeah. Something has twisted you, in fact. I mean, he's really taking this to, this is his crusade now. He is the knight in shining armor that has to save the damsel in distress, but we don't even know what the distress is. Or even I don't think even he knows what it is, but some nefarious thing has twisted Kara, and now he's got to go save her and bring her back.
And again, if it's Levitz trying to feed into what the readers are constantly thinking, it's great. It's a great bit of writing stuff. You're throwing everybody off the scent.
And again, I think that's why I responded more to that, because it's building up this the overall plot that we've been moving towards anyway. It gives Brainiac 5 something to do other than be the smartest guy in the room, and make people uncomfortable with his aloofness, but in other words, it gives him a little bit more character, I guess, even though it's not a favorable view of him.
Yeah, and he does have echoes, artistic wise, of some of those early issues where he was in the throes of grief. He's looking kind of gaunt. His hair's kind of a mess. His eyes are small. Yeah. Oh, I'm looking forward to the outcome, because I don't remember what happens with Brainy. In terms of, like, is there a resolution to all of this? Because if you build yourself up this way to think that it is your long lost love, there has to be some kind of resolution to that,
right?
So hopefully we get that. I don't remember if we do or don't.
Yeah, my concern is that the Sensor Girl is revealed and he doesn't really react to it. It's
Yeah.
just kind of pushed aside or forgotten.
So let's put that on the list. Brainiac's reaction
Mm-hmm.
to the reveal. Will we get it? Listeners, we've been compiling little things here and there, like unanswered questions and other resolutions, and to see if some of this stuff plays out. And as Paul Levitz freely admits, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Such is life.
Such is life. Well, one of the things that let's move off of Sense Girl real quick, that I've been bringing up and we've been noticing is Mon-El's attitude lately. Whether he's yelling at he's yelling at Invisible Kid 2 about get your powers into shape. There's been other situations where he's been a little not as calm, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Like something is just edging at the back of his brain. And in one of the little subplots here, we finally get the revelation that the lead serum that allows him as a Daxamite to roam about the universe freely, because Daxamites are vulnerable to lead, and it was a serum that Brainy created. The dose apparently only works for 48 hours, which is terrible. That's a terrible way to take medicine. But now it's shortening to 24 hours and even less, as Shadowlass reveals to Phantom Girl.
Mm-hmm. It's a good thing you just mentioned all this, Peter, because when I first read that scene, I'd forgotten the stuff that we talked about in regards to Mon-El and his attitude, because this came across as out of left field to me. It's like, oh, Mon-El's serum isn't working. How big crisis here. But yeah, now that you framed it that way, it's like, oh yeah, this makes total sense why we're getting this now.
And I'm not certain, because it's not like I have Paul Levitz's playbook, if it really was that intentional, or this is stuff that I'm noticing in hindsight, because I know we are getting a Mon-El focused issue 2 issues from now, and then we get this scene. But I feel like it's warranted. I feel like it's not as coincidental as maybe it might have felt. Yeah, I don't know. Or it's Paul Levitz just being smart enough to go, oh, that's how I wrote him then. Well, let's do something about that.
Yeah, exactly. Either way, I think it works great.
Right.
And another thing relating to that, I mentioned in the synopsis, or I don't actually remember if I did now or not. But anyway, there's this conversation between Phantom Girl and Shadowlass, and where I kind of missed the connection that you just described with Mon-El. We have seen some similar things with Shadowlass and the way that she talks to people or treats people. And we've kind of gotten, I think I've mentioned 2 different things where she comes across as kind of mean in some circumstances, but in others, especially in regards to Brainiac 5, she seems very empathetic. And but back to the former option, Phantom Girl basically calls her out on this, and she admits it. Yeah, I've been upset, but nothing. She says, but nothing I want to take out on you either. Sorry, I've been worried, and then we get that reveal about the serum. So that's a nice bit of continuity to me that makes a lot of sense. But for some reason, the Mon-El thing did not come across on the page to me as like that. Yeah.
Well, in contrast to like a character like Brainiac 5, Mon-El is a rock, right? Like nothing ever goes wrong with Mon-El, right? He's the Superman character.
Mm-hmm.
So we wouldn't expect maybe those kind of things. And if there was some kind of agitation on his part, I think I even said you could chalk it up to him being the elder statesman, that he is the quiet it almost feels like, alongside Lightning Lad and Saturn Girl and Cosmic Boy, you have Mon-El, right? You have more or less a stand-in for their very inspiration for starting the Legion at this point. He's the closest thing to a Superboy that you're going to get, or a Superman. So his position is pretty unique and pretty strong. And maybe he doesn't like being in that position. I think that's one of the things that when they change him into Valor during Zero Hour, and the way they characterize Mon-El during the 5 years later, I think he is a little uncomfortable with the way people treat him.
Mm-hmm.
And I could certainly see, it's not on the page. I'm not saying it's on the page here, but I could see that as a writer, like a writer maybe tapping into, well, sure, he comes across as the very embodiment of what a Superman character is, but that doesn't mean he's comfortable with that. And he always has to be in check physically and power-wise, and now suddenly he's in decline.
Mm-hmm.
And Phantom Girl even says, wow, look at him, he's putting on a brave face. Because why should he? Maybe he doesn't want people to worry. Because he is Mon-El. He is, quote-unquote, Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Except he, you bring up some great points there, but Mon-El, whereas Superman, even Superboy to some degree, they had, especially Superman, had time to develop their abilities, their control over their abilities. Mon-El spent most of his time in the Phantom Zone. And so he doesn't, he has this facade perhaps of being, like you say, a rock and in control, but he really isn't. And again, that's not on the page either. This is just my reaching for some connections here. But I could see where that would be a lot more concerning to him, because he doesn't have that length of time that he's built up his skills, so to speak.
And we saw that notion in the Tails storyline when they went back to Shadowlass's homeworld.
That's right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where there was that woman who could, Lady Memory or whatever her name is, and she quite quickly and easily made him go bonkers just by putting the fear of the Phantom Zone in him.
Yeah, and that's usually the angle they take with him. Is that's kind of what I think they're suggesting here is that the lead serum will stop working. He has to go back in the Phantom Zone, that's a major trauma to him. But the thing I'm talking about is slightly different and probably not as interesting as him going back to the Phantom Zone. But yeah, it all plays as one with him. That's to me, that's all part of Mon-El's character, and I wish that they would play that up a little bit. And maybe, like you said, with this upcoming issue that's focused on him, they will.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. That'll be fun. In 2 more issues, we'll be able to take a look at that, see how all that plays out. Where to next?
Well, I think we really just have the scenes with Empress on the prison arc and Censor Girl, right?
Yeah. Those are big.
Yeah.
And I'm so scared to talk about them.
Well, you had mentioned before, Empress coming here to recruit, and what was her motivation there? Was she after some Legionnaires? Obviously, is she after some other villains? That kind of a thing. And I was just scanning the pages here while you were talking, and Empress reveals herself and makes her announcement. She says, perhaps there are more qualified volunteers aboard this vessel, and she's facing the Legionnaires. So it makes it very clear that she's even offering or making the offer to them. And of course, Lightning Lass and Colossal Boy basically tell her to shut up and go away. And she says, such limited imagination. Still, I'm sure someone wants to help me conquer a world or two. Maybe she's promoting this idea that the Legionnaires should join her, or some Legionnaires to join her. But really, I think all that is just a preamble to what comes, here in a few pages,
Right.
with the appearance of Censor Girl, the unexpected appearance of Censor Girl.
Right. Because she was just on Earth with Brainiac 5.
Yeah.
Without a flight ring.
Mm-hmm.
And now shows up here, and who is it that Colossal Boy or something is like, well, what are you doing here? Surprised that she was here, surprised.
Yeah, how'd you get here, he says.
Yeah.
And her response, I love it. You needed me.
So again, another sort of clue. Real quick, I liked that Lightning Lass was like, no, I don't think the Legionnaires are going to join you. Been there, done that. And whether that's like a callback to Lightning Lord, tried to get her into the Legion of Supervillains.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if there was like a previous Fatal 5 story where they were trying to recruit Legionnaires, but I either way, I liked that little bit of her. Lightning Lass is, I loved that he put her front and center between the two teams. Like, all right, everybody, into your prison cells. And then Timberwolf, which is also a lovely connection between the two of them. Like, finally, not a scene where they're yelling or being mopey about each other.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's like, you know what? They're kind of gunning for a fight, and so am I. And she's like, you know what? You're right. Let's go. Yeah, I loved that. I loved everything about her being in charge, Timberwolf being right there. Even Shrinking Violet starts to notice, right? She says, wow, like, look at Lightning Lass stepping up to the plate. So she gets, to go along with that whole Paul Levitt's dialogue thing, I think Lightning Lass gets some nice little quiet moments here.
Mm-hmm.
So Censor Girl comes in. She is a force to be reckoned with. The big one is that she can stand. The Eye is afraid of her.
Yeah, that little couple panels there where I can't tell if the Eye is just glowing or actually emitting some sort of power, some sort of blast or something at Censor Girl, and she's just shrugging it off. But then, yeah, you get that little. It's almost like the Eye has malfunctioned, and then you get it just kind of slowly moving down underneath the panel border, and then you see it coming back up behind Emerald Empress. I love that little bit of comedy. And then it's shaking behind in the final panel on that page. It's shaking behind Empress. So and Empress seems like she's so focused on Censor Girl and trying to persuade her to join her, she's not even noticing the effect of the Eye. Granted, it's behind her, but it's just like she's so totally focused on convincing Censor Girl to join her. It's just an interesting sequence of panels here on that page.
Right. And what else does she do? I mean, first of all, she takes Brainiac 5's or disrupts his vision when she kicks him out of her room. She blankets the area with darkness on the Ark so nobody can see, and the Persuader can't use his axe to cut through it. She stands up to the Emerald Eye. She feels like she has some strength because she punches Huntar right out. And she also backhands the Emerald Empress. Which I love. The Empress is like, I'm gonna allow you that liberty right now.
But it is. I mean, there's she says, well, talk about characters, especially green characters, jumping to conclusions. Empress basically demands, I'm forming a new Fatal 5. Join us. You have no reason to be with the Legion. And then the thing with the Eye happens. She says, you're even more powerful than I thought. Join me, together we can rule. But, it's just, you have no reason to be with the Legion. That almost sounds like she has some knowledge of the situation or or the fact that Sensor Girl's a new member, maybe that's that's an obvious thing to Emerald Empress because this is someone who she doesn't recognize, but yet she has some sort of connection or recognition in the way that Sensor Girl conducts herself. And
yeah,
I don't think it's just because she was able to punch out what's his name that you said.
Right.
There's more to it. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here.
I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Recognition is the thing. And this is going to play out when we get to we're only like, 4 issues away from the revelation. And Emerald Empress does play a part in that. So, I hope I didn't spoil that for you.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay. It's not, you're right. The recognition is the thing. There is dialogue here that is working in hindsight for me that I don't think as a kid I picked up on. And when Paul Levitt's in the letter column in this issue says the clues are there, he's right. He is writing. Of all the issues leading up to the revelation of Sensor Girl, this is the first time I realized, I was like, oh, this is the issue that feels like they know who it is. Because up to now, remember, they even, I think Steve Lytle said, oh, we thought it was going to be Supergirl, but then Jeanette Kahn said, no, you can't use her. So they had to go to like a plan B.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always interested, well, where did the plan B start to come into play? And I feel like definitely this issue, if it didn't happen before, it's happening now. They know who this is now. And it's all because of this dialogue with Emerald Empress. Like you said, you have potential, I can use you. I can use a woman of your power, your quality. And she says, appear at last. Join me, together we can rule. The way that Sensor Girl speaks, you offend me. Even Emerald Empress, you'll regret that liberty.
Well, and before that, Sensor Girl responds with, when she's like, Emerald Empress says, appear at last, Sensor Girl says, speak your mind. These are very deliberate choices on Levis's part as far as the words used here.
And I'm kind of hesitating if I really want to say this last thing. It's very interesting that Levitz chose an empress to talk to Sensor Girl. That's about as far as I'm going to go with that. Right? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. That totally makes sense.
And then when you, again, go backwards and she's saying peer and she's, oh, it's there. It's all there. So listeners, if you don't know who Sensor Girl is by now, maybe you can put all that stuff together and see if it does make sense. And if you do know who it is, see if you know what we're talking about.
See, I so wish I had kept up reading Legion at this time, because I would have loved to have come to this mystery as it was unveiling itself.
Right.
To see if I would have picked up on the clues. I can tell you I probably wouldn't have, because I'm not that in depth of a reader. When it comes to mysteries, it's like, yeah, here's all the stuff. It's like, oh, here's the reveal. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see the connections now, but I don't concern myself too much with it. I just like the being in the moment and seeing what happens from the beginning to the end of the mystery. And I'm not too big on trying to solve the mystery.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, my age at the time, I just was unfamiliar with so many things that it just wouldn't have spoke to me back then. Mm-hmm. But, reading it now, and the other thing too is the whole hollow globe, right? Showing a world that is not where it should be. The last page. So the last page too, the last page of the story, or second to last page on 22, there's dialogue there. Where everybody's talking about Sensor Girl, and Shrinking Violet says or somebody says she was amazing. We haven't had a woman of such sheer power in the Legion since Supergirl was active. Sensor Girl is amazing. But why did Saturn Girl invite her to join so mysteriously, Chameleon Boy? This is Shrinking Violet. Maybe she had a criminal past. You saw how familiarly, the Emerald Empress treated her.
Mm.
So there again, you go back to that dialogue, right? But I also love what Timberwolf says and say, look, none of it makes sense. Nobody could really do all those weird stunts. And then Chameleon Boy says, are you suggesting she does it all with mirrors, Timberwolf?
Yeah. Levitt's, like you said, all the clues are in this issue, but he's really kind of ham-fisting it right now.
Yeah, and I wrote other words, like subtext for some of the things that they say, but I don't want to say them because I think it sort of gives it away. I mean, I like what Vi says, you know, Emerald Empress, there's something that feels familiar to her, and that's a huge clue.
Yeah.
And so is what Timberwolf says about the powers, you know, like, yeah, nobody could do all those things. She does it with mirrors. I mean, there's other words that you could throw in there that could lead you back to who this is. So that was great. That's all great stuff. And I forgot about some of those scenes. And you're right. The fight scene is kind of just sort of the fight scene. But it led us to this really great moment between what feels, like you said, like just a random generic appearance of Emerald Empress, but maybe it's going to be more than that. I don't know.
I did want to note one more thing about the presentation of this. The book opens, you know, the first scene between Brainiac 5 and Element Lad. The pages are black.
Yeah,
not white; they're black. And every time we get a scene with Brainiac 5 investigating the mystery of Sensor Girl, the pages are black. And then that is consistent throughout this story, except for the one page where Sensor Girl appears in the fight. But, the connection, of course, is her. So I thought that was an interesting through line for this issue. And it made me, it suggests to me in a very obvious way, that at least the mystery of Sensor Girl is taking a bit of a darker turn, not only literally on the page, but the fact that Brainiac 5 is starting to go down that rabbit hole and doing things that he probably shouldn't be doing and should know better about. So I like that kind of connection between what's physically on in the comic and then also what's in the story.
When they go to reprint this story in Tales 346, all those black pages, for some reason, a lot of those black pages are shrunk a little bit. And I mentioned that before in another reprint.
Yeah, because of the bleed, I imagine.
I guess, yeah. It's so weird, but I guess because they really wanted the black border. Because some of the pages are the same size, but for those pages, they're all kind of shrunk down a little bit. So weird. It's so weird.
I'm sure it has to do with a printing thing that
right.
they were doing it that way. They save some money.
Yeah. I only have like a few more little quick notes here and there. I'll throw them out, and then you can add to as you have. Going back to the first sequence, the tubes. Not to be guilty again of trying to jump the timeline, but all of that mucking around with the Earth's core, and you think about what happens in 5 years later. Like, Is it any wonder? The future is like digging into the Earth's core. That's crazy.
Yeah, I had the same thought. It was like, it can't be that good for the Earth for sticking things into it like that. But it's funny you mentioned that because I put in my notes here too. This tube system, this has been around for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember reading a story where there was I'm blanking on the issue, of course, but there was an invasion Oh, I think it's the first appearance of the Miracle Machine, where Earth was invaded. I remember Karate Kid in his old
Oh,
tan
I read that
costume.
issue.
Yeah,
Okay.
and because he was going from Metropolis to Japan, and they showed a cutaway of the Earth, and you see this tube system going through it. Now, it wasn't going through the
Right.
middle of the Earth then, but the idea was there that they were able to do this in the future.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I took note here, sort of in the middle of the issue. Emerald Empress feels like the Legion's version of the White Witch from X-Men.
Mm.
Although I don't know who came first. I guess Emerald Empress did, but there's that casual Durlin racism again, where Shrinking Violet's the Chameleon Chief tries to impersonate her to escape, and she says, "Ugh, I even hate touching that shape stealer." And then Cam's like, "Yeah, hello, I'm standing here."
Yeah, I had that in my notes as well. I was curious if this is going to be some sort of future plot development. Yeah, I can imagine her racism, because of what happened to her, affects her relationship with Chameleon Boy, or vice versa for that matter. And I forget, is Shrinking Violet part of the espionage squad?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a story that's begging to be told. Some sort of conflict between those two characters because of this.
Right. If people aren't trying to protest Proteans, they're always up in arms against Durlins. And I also added the Daxamites to that list because of what happened during the Great Darkness saga.
Very true. Mm-hmm.
We haven't really gotten that. But that's that sort of little bit of stuff that Paul Levis throws in to show that the future is not quite perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's some.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's something they do in Star Trek too,
Yes.
right? Like you think of the Undiscovered Country, where Kirk was so against the Klingons, and that they're just people, And actually, I don't know if you're watching Picard, but they're even doing it on that right now with Romulans.
Mm-hmm.
There was a line about someone says something about, well, they were just Romulan lives, and Picard is like, no, lives.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what they are.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing that I think most people kind of forget, is that they want to say, oh, well, the future's it's a utopia, everybody's great. It's like, no. I think writers are smart enough to show that there is still other things going on.
And you have to have that, otherwise it's not really a story. You have to have conflict. You have to have
right.
And you can't, as much as we perhaps some of us would like to, you can't breed out, even over millennia, human prejudice. It just it will never work.
Right.
Well, or maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully, I'm wrong about that. But as of now, you don't get that, and that's why I always kind of go to people who point to Star Trek as it's supposed to be utopia. The people that are complaining about Discovery and maybe even Picard now, I don't know, but any kind of future story, and I'm including Legion in this, where it's supposed to be this fantastic future and everybody gets along and all this stuff. It's like, no, it's when you've got humanity rubbing up against other cultures and races in the universe, things aren't going to work out perfectly. And I don't understand that kind of tunnel vision view of future stories like these. So it doesn't make sense to me.
Right. And that's what sci-fi is supposed to do. It's supposed
Yes.
to put a mirror up to our current situation.
Yes.
So you do want to show those elements to show that, look, even in the future, it still goes on, or that you are supposed to do better.
Yes, exactly. That's precisely how I feel about science fiction. That's it. We should be doing better. And here's an illustration why, right? And so this is another example of that between Vi and Durlins.
Right. I don't really have much else. The splash page in the fight is a little messy. It's kind of like the cover, the composition. under Levitz, under Giffen, that could have been a really cool splash page. It's okay.
Yeah.
Although I didn't mind the artwork in this issue, I thought it actually was quite nice, and it speaks to what I said before about this issue feeling like it's settling. Story-wise, I thought the Element Lad Siobhan ending, and also the scene where Element Lad checks in on the campers and just casually mentions, oh, well, it's just Brainy being obsessed, and Ultra Boy's like eating the meat. Like, those two things ended weirdly for me. It's like, I don't know what Paul Levitz was thinking. Like the transition, that end of the camp scene was weird. And I was like, why are we going back to Element Lad and Siobhan? Like, I was trying to tie it somehow to the beginning of it, and she does say maybe he knows more than he's putting on, or as a leader. I don't know. What'd you make of that ending?
Well, that's precisely what I thought. Other than the fact of the clunkiness of like you say, the endings of those scenes, unless they're building to something else, which I don't know yet. It's just kind of weird. But yeah, I took that scene between those two characters to be more of to really explain why Element Lad isn't all that concerned. Although I think we've already gotten that. I mean, he's explicitly stated at least a few times now that he trusts Saturn Girl's judgment, and yet for some reason Levitz seems like he needs to put a button on the fact that Element Lad just doesn't. He's not concerned about this. So again, I come back to filler. I mentioned the fight scene in particular, but this reads to me like filler too. It's like, well, we needed one more page to end the issue, and here you go. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little strange, especially Element. Like, he's usually the worry wart.
Yeah, and he says, and I don't care either. Siobhan says, you mean you actually don't know any more about Sensor Girl? No, and I don't care too either. It's like, okay. And then it ends with that weird, I'm going to tickle the truth out of you.
Yeah. The only other thing I didn't mention was just because I thought we might have something to say about it in the backup tale was Quislet spying on Brainiac 5.
Yeah. That was, I was going to mention that too, but it doesn't seem to go anywhere. At least for now. So yeah, I where my brain went with that was, Quislet for some reason is following either Element Lad or Brainiac 5, or they just happen to be at the same place at the same time. I don't know. But, what happens if he accidentally or deliberately, Quislet, reveals that Brainiac 5 is doing this stuff with Sensor Girl? And, what's the consequence of that? But for some reason, I'm kind of guessing that doesn't really play into anything.
Yeah, probably.
It's just like this backup tale, this training session situation is just, let's put Quislet on more panels.
I do get the feeling he's popular, even as early as it is with this character.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the training. I like the backup training session because it speaks a little bit to his powers. It's not like we haven't seen this before, but I kind of liked. It makes sense too. Wildfire's like, all right, we need to check this guy out. He's the only one that he kind of like snuck himself onto the team. We don't know anything about him. Even if they do, Wildfire does that whole thing about let me get these chunks of mass and see what he does with them. But then he also says, be interesting. We should go find some asteroids, like it kind of speaks to the potential of the character. And then the silliness of Quislet and using his powers and then using his powers on Wildfire, which I thought was funny.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's they need to fill up some pages.
Yeah, exactly. And it was kind of nice to see Quislet being shown to have the the ability, the I guess the control of his transformational powers, to the point where we get a bunch of different characters here on a couple pages, but one of which actually resembles another character we saw on the outside of the Legion clubhouse. So I thought that was interesting that they would repeat that imagery, that green tentacled creature.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and then we get that one. Is that what is that character's name, Peter? The one that is the humanoid looking
Astro Boy.
Astro Boy, yes.
Yeah.
I thought that was a fun little thing. I mean, I'm sure it's not exactly what Astro Boy looks like, because of copyright issues, but it was a very clear homage, if not particular swipe of the character.
And we should say the backup tale is by Mr. Paul Levitz, obviously, but also on the art, we got Paris Collins.
Yes.
And Gary Martin. I know Paris is at this, or a couple years prior to this, was really made a name for himself on Blue Devil.
Yes, I was a big fan of Paris Collins.
Oh yeah,
I mean, he makes a great. I'm sorry, yeah. Carl Gafford also, the usual team there.
Yep.
But he makes a. I mean, we only see two, characters that don't have faces. So
yeah.
But I mean, he does show characters with faces. But I would love to see Paris Collins do more Legion work. In fact, he almost kind of does a better job than LaRoque. But I'll reserve judgment.
I mean, he certainly has a style.
Yeah.
Very, comic book style. You know, like just it's fun to see. It has life. It has energy. It's very kinetic.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, because there's no humanoids, you don't necessarily get to see the full effect of it. But it was good. It was a cute little backup tale. It was fine.
Yeah, for what it was, sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of artists, Peter, I realized that I neglected to mention that Mike DiCarlo was also part of the main story. Somehow I missed that.
Oh, yeah. There's his name, Mike DiCarlo.
Which begs the question, what pages did he ink versus Malstedt? Because they're pretty consistent. Oh, I think I can tell. It looks like some of the fight scenes are done by DiCarlo. Maybe some other pages here too. Yeah, like at the end.
Yeah. Anything else about that issue?
No, I don't believe so. Looking forward to what comes next.
Next couple episodes, so we're going to move on to issue number 22. In our notes, before we get to that Mon-El issue in 23, we could do a Tales between issues 22 and 23, focusing on the Legionnaires 3 miniseries, which would wrap up by those issues. We could also put it between issues 23 and 24 if we wanted to, because both of those issues kind of end without needing to go on to the next issue. So we'll see where like I said, right now we would do issue 22 and then do a Tales. And if for some reason we want to go to the Mon-El story, we can always go to 23 and then do Tales. Mm-hmm. So we'll take a look at that as we go. But for now, let's continue on and look at some Legion of Superheroes appearances throughout the DC Universe at this time, which means... oh, wait, before we do that, I had a couple things about the Meanwhile column in this issue. Did you read that?
I did, yes.
So it's a guest Meanwhile column by Karen Berger, editor of the Legion book, talking about a dream that she has where she writes the Meanwhile column. And I thought it was kind of interesting because it felt very Sandman-like.
Good point.
Yeah, and I was wondering if she was already in talks with Neil Gaiman at this point, because that came out, I thought it came out like in 88, maybe it came out in 89. This might be a little too early. Anyway, though, it does read weirdly like a Gaiman story, so I thought that was curious. But she full on announces that next issue is the start or the foundation for what she calls their next multi-part story. And she even said annual multi-part story, which was kind of weird. And that it focuses on Universo. So just like Paul Levitz's Meanwhile column that straight up was like, here's who Sensor Girl is. Dead End will be the spawning ground for the Legion's annual multi-part suspenseful epic. This year's saga features the return of Universo, and who's already been sowing the seeds of his destructive plan throughout the recent stories. I'm not telling where, of course. Mm-hmm. So, we're still 10 issues out from that. And I was like, wow, they're just laying it all right out there. Huh? I was trying to read some letters about this particular issue, and it's mostly people just trying to pick up on the clues like we were. Mm-hmm. So nothing really kind of jumped out there.
Yeah.
So now we go to our other segment, Who's Who number 14. I have a couple things to say about Booster Gold number 3. And the Legion makes very tiny appearances in Outsiders 6 and Infinity Inc. number 25 at this time. But let's start with Who's Who number 14, where we only, after last issue, have 2 Legion characters, Magnetic Kid and Mono.
Yeah, that was a nice reprieve after last time.
And I have like nary a note, very just nothing.
Yeah, well, Magnetic Kid, and this is art by Greg LaRocque and Carl Kessel. We've complained, commented about Magnetic Kid in the past, so there's not much more to talk about here. I do like, though, this is just a little thing on this page featuring him. The most interesting thing about this is the fact that they're showing him use his powers to, I guess, levitate his logo.
Yeah.
His kind of unimpressive logo.
Right.
So, there's that. There's nothing really interesting at all about Magnetic Kid. So, poor guy. I kind of feel bad for him. Having to try to fill Rock's shoes.
Yeah, he's my punching bag.
Yeah.
The character just really is not speaking to me. And even this image speaks to Greg LaRocque's, the sort of, very, like Paul Levitt said, soldier-like artwork where it's just sort of flat.
Yeah, it is.
He doesn't look like he has a neck. Yeah, it's fine.
The image of his brother there, it looks better.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
First appearance was Adventure Comics 335. It just was one panel where Cosmic Boy was waving goodbye to his family. Mm. And then you counter that with Mono by Jim Starlin.
Yes.
Of all people.
Starlin doing his trademark weird leg stance that he does. I've noticed this over the years, looking at his characters, especially there was a run on in DC Comics Presents that he did, that I absolutely love. But you could see it here where in the foreground where he's battling Superboy, and then also a similar stance. When he's trying to take on the Sun Eater, from that storyline, that classic storyline story I should say. It's not really a storyline, but that classic story that I mentioned earlier in the episode. And that was Adventure Comics 352. What did you say the Magnetic Kid was? 335. Okay, a little earlier.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Mano has always been one of those. He's like my second favorite of the Fatal Five, and I think we talked about this a little bit in the Tales episode where we discussed the Justice League versus Fatal Five movie, and the difference in the relationships of the Fatal Five characters, because we did have that switch from Tharok being the leader, as he is mostly portrayed in the comic book stories, but in the movie it was Mano who was the more leader person in that movie. So I thought that was really cool, and his look is really interesting. Not the costume so much, and like I said, with art by Jim Starlin here, but the fact that he comes from a planet where it's I think it does say here he's born on the extremely polluted world Angtu, and he has to wear a fishbowl to survive, I guess, because he can't survive outside that atmosphere, I suppose. But his head is always drawn in shadow. You cannot see the features of his face. I always thought that was a neat design element.
Mano.
I know it's so on the nose, right?
Right.
Did you notice though? I thought this was weird. Mano's weight is 140 pounds listed here. Magnetic Kid's weight is 10 pounds more.
Oh wow!
You would think the other way around, but what really concerns me, Peter, is that both of these characters weigh less than I do.
Yeah, and Mano's supposed to be 5'11", and he weighs 140. He's a thin dude.
Yeah, he is. What is Magnetic Kid's height? 5'9". That's about right, I guess.
That's weird. They weren't as spot on with this. That the Ohatmu issues were much better at that.
I swear they the people who put this together, was Mark Waid still part of this at this time? Probably. But I swear they just kind of threw in things like that. Height and weight is like they didn't really look at it. They just threw in some numbers.
Yeah. Like I'm going up. Mary Marvel is 5'6". That's not short. That's like starting to be tall for a girl. 5'6". Yeah, not that tall, but tall. But she's only 120 pounds. That's it.
Yeah, that
5'6".
She'd blow away in a stiff wind.
Yeah, come on. So I don't know. Maybe they went around the offices and were like, "How tall are you? 5'6". How much you weigh?" Okay.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I guess so.
Maybe. It was the 80s. Maybe people were thinner.
Yeah.
They weren't eating as much under Reagan.
I was going to say something about Jane Fonda's exercise videos,
right.
But yeah.
Everybody was doing aerobics. Really cool thing in the letter column. They again are going on this whole thing where they're like, oh, I know we missed Alfred and we missed a couple other people, but that's because we're going to do special Who's Who based on the Batman family and Green Lantern Corps, which didn't happen. Outside of that, a few of the Legionnaires, Tellus, Validus, Bouncing Boy, Supergirl, show up in a comedy backup in Outsiders number 6, which is kind of like a takeoff of Casey at Bat, I guess. And it's just very silly backup tale. And they have just characters from all over the DC universe showing up in the background, so that's why you get a few of those characters. But I just thought it was fun to see Tellus, of all people.
Yeah, I wasn't able to read that because it's that backup tale, at least as far as I could tell, was not part of the issue that's available on the DCU app.
And that's something that that's why having Comic Book DB was awesome, because you can. I was like, what? Why are they in Outsiders number 6? Oh, right, that was that silly backup tale that it was by Mike W. Barr and Jim Engel who did the art, with apologies to Ernest L. Thayer, and it was called Outsiders at the Bat. It's just silly, something that looked like it could have come from Mad Magazine.
It's another reason why having the actual issues is a great thing, as opposed to digital reprints.
Infinite Inc. 25 just had a random Supergirl appearance, probably crisis related or whatever. So, And then Booster Gold number 3 finally shows the Legion ring on the cover, although on his fist, but you can't really tell that it's a Legion symbol, the L symbol. We get a couple more pages with Rose and Thorn. He is questioned about his ring. Booster Gold's on some date for publicity, and she questions him about the ring, and he kind of blows it off. He's like, it's just magic, you know. He was just trying to change the subject. The end of the issue, he gets captured by members of the 1000, and one of the villains says, oh, you know, he's not invulnerable. He just has a shield, a force field, similar to Brainiac's famous impenetrable field. And I thought, does she mean Superman's villain? Because I know that about Brainiac 5, right? He has his force belt. But I didn't realize that also was a thing with Brainiac himself. I don't know enough about Bronze Age Brainiac, but I was like, oh, okay. I guess that's a thing with all the Brainiacs.
Yeah, I guess. I don't remember that either, but yeah, it's possible.
Unless that was Dan Jurgens kind of extrapolating backwards, you know, from Brainiac 5.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So no real Legion connection just yet, but getting closer and closer. So. And then that is all I have.
And I have nothing else either.
Okay. Then that is the issue. That is the episode. That is the issue. Welcome to 2020. Welcome to the next third of the Baxter run. And we'll be getting closer and closer to the Mystery Girl, Sensor Girl mystery wrapping up. Well, if that's it, then you can reach me at peter@thedailyrios.com.
And you can reach me at longboxreview@gmail.com.
We hopefully will see you soon. And by all means, please send us some feedback. Let us know what you thought of this issue or future issues. Let us know what you think of Legionnaires 3, that miniseries, because we will be talking about it shortly. And let us know what you're thinking of the new Legion of Superheroes series if you're reading it. We would love to hear your thoughts. All right, Eric, till next time.
Long live the Legion Project Podcast.
See ya.
Bye, Peter.